Thank you
Well,
so much for having me on.
oh my gosh, I am so excited. You're just amazing. I love everything you're doing. When I saw the stuff about like creative magic, I was like, she's my tribe. She's my tribe. I love her. So,
We found each other. That's so cool. Thank you for telling me that. That means so much to me. It's new for me to just be kind of out there with the weird stuff, the weird
oh,
stuff,
I love
and yeah. So it was actually just this winter that I like went into a cocoon and I was like, it's got to be my creative magic stuff. It's the only thing the world needs to see from me. Like, I just have to get over myself and let it happen. And so the fact that it had that kind of impact on you is like really cool.
it did. It did. I'm tearing up because I'm at a point in my life where I've pushed it all down and hidden it as much as I can, and it is starting to come out in probably like unhealthy ways, not like, crazy unhealthy, not illegal unhealthy, but like I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. So when I saw your creative magic stuff, I'm like, oh my God, she's my people. Like, I need her in my life. So tell me a little bit about how you got into that and how you decided that was your path.
Yeah. So let's see. So I've been a coach professionally for 12 years.
Awesome.
I know that seems like a long time because I have a baby face, but I promise you, I have been at this for quite some time.
I wasn't gonna
And
judge.
okay, some people are like, "How? Aren't you 23?" And I'm like, "No, but I was when I started." So, thanks, I guess. But I was actually a an improv instructor when I became a coach. I loved. Have you ever taken an improv class before, Jen?
I have only done it in college as part of like taking theater classes, and I have
Yeah.
always wanted to.
Okay. It is like I how I ended up being an instructor is still a mystery to me because I kind of took myself kicking and screaming to like get out of my comfort zone. Because I was also a theater kid, and that's great because you can rehearse and you can practice and you know what's gonna happen. It's just a really different thing.
And you're
And
someone else.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
found about theater was I could hide behind the character.
absolutely. And the direction,
Yes.
like there's so many layers, and you're kind of just little part of it. And in improv, you're just literally on that first drop of a roller coaster the whole time. Like that's what it is. But I
Right.
loved like watching. When I taught intro to improv, I was so happy all the time because I got to go teach adults how to play again. Yeah. And so it kind of lends itself to life coaching. It's a very similar philosophy. And so to answer the question that you actually asked me, how I ended up in this creative magic place is because, first of all, I think that most of my life I've always been a little bit of like a creative instigator, a little
Okay.
bit like feral in that way in my creativity. Like I was very active as a kid. Like there was not a lot of relaxed time for me. It was like relaxing to like type up the newsletter for my neighborhood or just like always doing
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. And not to put too fine a point on it, but when I was a late teens, maybe like 17 or 18, I was diagnosed with vocal notes because I was losing my voice all the time. And I just kind of took myself out of performing arts professionally. Like I didn't go to college for performing arts. Like I think it's sort of I interpreted it as the death of my dream. Like it was very intense. And so improv was like a very natural way to get back on stage without having any expectations on your performance, your abilities. So I think that was kind of what also pulled me to that. And I say all of this because I became a coach. I stopped teaching improv, and I was like a very intense, fully booked full-time coach for many, many years and working in a coach training program and developing leadership. And it was both amazing and also I think I got to a point where I was just like, what happened to the fun part? Like what happened to being a coach so as to have like my great artist dream life? Like where did that go?
Yes.
So one thing led to another, and I think that I just kind of started getting there's this, I think it's a Rumi quote, let yourself be pulled by the soft or called by the soft pull of that which you truly love. You know, you're nodding your head. I really believe too, so much of the, you know, if you end up using Uncover Your Creative Magic, which is free to use on my website, much of it is within that philosophy of kind of like just gently moving towards instead. Because I think so many of us, when we start to kind of get like, oh, I need to get creative again, we get really like in our performance stuff about it and like, oh God, how's it going to go? And do I have time? And like underneath that is also this thing of like, am I just going to disappoint myself over and over? And so everything that I've designed has just been in the spirit of like, it's all still there. We just kind of have to like little by little uncover, lovingly move toward, you know, you
I
know.
I love that kind of gentle take on it because I so relate to what you said about the feralness of it. I have a wild creativity inside of me that I have trouble taming. I have trouble taming it to the point of showing up as a normal human being. Like, there's times where I can't focus on a conversation I'm having with people because I have an idea in my head and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get alone so I can write that down. Or whatever, or so that thing that came to me while I was looking at this other thing in the store. I've told my boyfriend, if you send me to the store, I'm going to be gone for 3 hours because my brain doesn't work like a normal person. It doesn't, my brain can't go into the store and get the things I need and walk out of the store. My brain stands in front of an aisle and is like, oh, I could make this out of that. And I wonder if this thing goes with that thing. And I read this article one time about this one thing. That's how my brain works. And so there's a feralness to it that almost scares me a little bit sometimes in terms of trying to harness it and then make a business out of it, out of one of
Totally.
those things. I did check out your website. I signed up already for the first step, and I'm so excited to go through it. Because yeah, I'm in that mess right now of like, what do I do with this creative energy? How do I make something out of it? And how do I keep showing up in it and not be afraid to be public about it?
I mean, okay, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all this with me. Yeah, it's special. I mean, it's hard to talk about. I think it's part of why I was so kind of nervous about letting my freak flag fly, so to speak,
I
you
love it.
know? But the more that I do it, the more that I talk about this stuff and share it with people, um, the more I find that this is sort of a really intense undercurrent for most people most of the time. And feeling like we can't talk about it or share about it. And within that same vein, part of what we're also missing is the fun of those gifts, like when you were describing going to the grocery store, I was like, oh my gosh, like your creative spirit likes to dance. It is
Yeah.
like ready to dance
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a really similar creative spirit. And when it's on, it's really hard to ignore. And
Mhm.
so I have developed a lot of like habits and practices, but also I've been very strategic about designing my business. So I actually have time to like get on that bucking bronco from time to time and like follow some whims. And it's required a lot of faith in myself and trust because as I said before, I come from a background of like very intense and disciplined entrepreneurs, who are like, well, it has to be like this and it has to be like this. And I'm like, for years, I was like, it's not really like, that's not how it is for me. And now that I'm really embracing how it actually is, life is looking really different. The other thing I do want to tell you too is that on my podcast, West of Wonderland, which I host with my coaching BFF, Bay Quiney, our podcast is mostly we kind of just look at the overlap between like coaching and personal development work and magical media. So like Wizarding World and Disney, everything. And we love Disney parks. So yeah, so we're always kind of like talking about all of those things. But one of the things that happened when we started leaning into this kind of more open, vulnerable connection around our creative self together,
Mm.
we've kind of cracked open this new possibility for coaches even, and like how to work with that, how to work with dreams that people have in a way that is very tender and loving and empowering instead of, a lot of coaching can be very like, oh, there's a thing you want. Well, you have to go for it or you are a loser. Or so, you know what I mean? It's just like, that's
Right.
not a very loving, supportive, nurturing environment,
Right. And it's hard for some people. So how do you, I guess what I struggle with most is trying to figure out how to get a business out of that crazy animal creativity. Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
work through that with people?
Short answer to your question is yes. Part of my business is coaching with people who run their own businesses and kind of helping them redesign. Most people who hire me, because I'm a little pricey these days, most people who hire me have been in business. And so for them, it's like, there's some things that are good. There's some things that are just like, oh my God, can't this be different? So they have like some visions of how they'd like things to really be and also to feel, which I think is a really important part of the process, And I think as a coach, I'm also, it won't surprise you at all, but I'm way more into the imaginative visioning of how you want to experience your business. And so it um it drives some people crazy because they're like, but the numbers. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get there. Like, I
Yeah.
know we need that clarity, we need that intention. But um I have taken a lot of inspiration actually from Walt Disney's journey to create Disneyland. I read this book when I was kind of reimagining my business, and it was just this really lovely, like, factual account of what was it like behind the scenes with Walt Disney putting this thing together that had never existed before. And
Okay.
I mean, I love Disneyland and Disney World in the first place, obviously, but to me, one of the things as a coach that I find really incredible about it is that in the in ontological coaching, which is the kind of coaching I do, which is just like the whole being of someone. It's a very like holistic look at, how everything works together.
Mhm.
Um, we have this distinction about um like how do I explain this without like 3 days of training to like lead up to this to give this to you. But it's this distinction basically about how like sometimes when we're stuck in life, the problem that we're having, like the thing we're hitting our head against, is that we're actually kind of stuck between two strengths that we have.
Mm.
Yeah. And so we're thinking about it as a problem, but really it's like we just have these two strengths and they just can't work together yet. So they're sort of butting heads and we're kind of caught in between. Part of what I love about this is first of all the pure imagination that it takes as a human being to be like, okay, so my this and my this don't exist yet together. What if they could? What if they could today? What if they could in this relationship? What if they could in this part of my business? And actually getting really like practical and trying out new ways of being and trying out new strategies. And that
Yeah.
is crazy cool because you're really in the zone of possibility and imagination and like kind of like crafting new things in real time. The reason that I love how this relates to Disneyland is because Disneyland fundamentally is this living, breathing business experience of these two things that did not exist together anywhere. That Walt Disney was like, I'm gonna stitch these up. These are going to be a thing. No one can see it but me, but I'm going to make it a thing. And
Right.
look at it. Yeah.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. Oh my gosh. I heard somebody say about Disney, like he could see it, he's describing what he's wanting to create, and other people are like, it's not there. I don't understand. I don't see it, and but he believed in it so strongly and could see it so clearly that you're right. He created it out of thin air.
He totally did. And the
Yeah.
the book I read is called Disney's Land by Richard Snow, and it's a really fun read because mostly it's just this incredibly strange push and pull between like creative and engineering and creative and it's like
Yeah.
it's a very cool look into the creative process. And so the thing that I went to get to show you that I'm like embarrassed to talk about, but clearly not because I'm talking about it, is
Good.
I when I started redesigning my business to actually like thrive on my creativity, I had I did a lot of research and I was just like, there's got to be a way. Like, there's got to be a way for this to flow. And can I stay open to learning about what it might look like? And so, a couple of things that I learned, I read this great book called Quiet Marketing by Danielle Gardner. And the book is basically her account of how, when she learned about her human design type, it
Mhm.
changed a lot about how she ran her business. And so I was like, oh, let me get into my human design type.
Yeah.
And so that started kind of showing me, oh, I've been running my business for 10 years as this other type. Of course, it has felt off. But I also, at the same time, had to really just kind of fundamentally choose for myself that the perspective I have on creativity and who I'm committed to being for creativity in my life is valuable.
Mm.
Because in business, we are never taught to go there. Never. Which is crazy because to the point of our whole conversation, it's like deeply meaningful.
Right. Because we're always told what is a problem you're solving that people will pay for, right? That's like the business. That's the crux of business is
So transactional.
right. Exactly.
Prove
Exactly.
it. Prove the value.
Show me why it's worth that. There's a moment in The Greatest Showman that I absolutely love, and I think about it a lot, which is where he's in an office building at the very beginning and he's looking out the window and there are all these people sitting at desks, right? And they're sitting and they're typing and he looks out the window and there are all these tombstones lined up.
Oh my God.
And it like
Yeah.
matches the image of the people just working their lives to death. And it's a very gray, obviously the director did it on purpose. It's a very grayed out kind of a scene. And it's just like, ugh, that is super meaningful that's what so many people are doing because that's what we grow up thinking that's how we're supposed to live our lives.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, and I think, again, we talk about this on West of Wonderland incessantly, like just the extent to which we are sometimes acutely, but sometimes just little by little over time, just sort of drained of that creative power. We're taught because adult life requires these things, you can no longer be this.
Yes.
And I feel like my mission in life is just to be living proof that that is not true.
I love
And I also was just as you were talking about that question, like the business question, it is fascinating to me because I feel like if we want to find powerful answers to how does my creative passion live with business, like how do they feed each other? How does it succeed?
Mhm.
It means that we have to accept a couple of fundamental truths. One of them is you have a very unique creative spirit that is going to dance in certain ways, and those things are going to serve people in certain ways, but it's also going to have you feeling and receiving from the universe in like a very unique way. So I think it's really important to acknowledge. The other thing that I think is really important to acknowledge is that business is sort of having us have to operate in a realm that is, for the most part in the world, deeply uncreative. It's sort of inviting in that energy of capitalism. It's inviting in, I have some clients who, when we first start working together, anytime I bring up questions about their financials, they go, like they just don't want to talk about it because we're so scared. Like we're kind of pre-programmed to go like quiet and freaked out, especially women,
oh
especially
yeah,
creative people. Yeah.
of course.
We just
Yeah,
have this like
we feel
script.
icky about asking for money and making our creative endeavor be a money making thing. We feel icky about it because yeah, it's just like, yeah, but what problem does that solve? And how can you put a worth on that thing? It's just not as, it's not what we grow up being exposed to as much.
No, totally. I have one of my clients who she's one who kind of hired me when she was like, I've been going in this certain direction. It's functional, but I'm not happy. And we've been redesigning. Recently, I was chatting with her and her business partner. They make these really cool ADHD friendly academic year planners for kids, but also for adults. And they were getting ready to go into a local pitch contest to see if maybe they could get some funding. And we were just doing some feedback on the pitch. And it was so funny, Jen, because I found myself being like, this feels indelicate to say, but like, let's talk for a minute about like, if we were three men having this conversation, what would that conversation be? And it wasn't, is this a good idea? Is it going to be okay? Are we asking for too much money? It was just, where can we get $200,000 really fast? Like that was literally, it was just like this. So it's like, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that
Right.
like, there's certain like rules of operation that I think have to be reclaimed and can be creatively reclaimed. But what I wanted to show you is the Disney World map of my business. I drew this the other day because I was like, it's all coming together. And I just like needed to process it. So look, this is Main Street, USA. And if you're going down Main Street, it's like joy and improv and magic and music and Disney World. And then here's the hub. It says Laura Westman Coaching with Cinderella
Yeah.
Castle. Tomorrowland is my all my digital stuff. So like my YouTube channel and Uncover Your Creative Magic and my courses. And then
Mhm.
Fantasyland is West of Wonderland and all the stuff Bay and I do together. By the way, we're having a retreat later this year. You should totally come. And
I will
then
be following you to hear all
okay.
the things you're up
Okay.
to.
And Liberty Square is partnerships. Like I'm doing this program right now that I don't even have enough time to tell you about, but I'm teaming up with a hypnotherapist who's also a coach. And we're putting together this program that's basically like part coaching, part hypnotherapy, part improv to help people kind of move into their next level with like public speaking and their business. And I know it's crazy. So that's
That
Liberty
sounds
Square.
incredible.
Yeah. It's like the more that we are working on it, the more I'm like, why has no one done this before? This is
Yes.
freaking genius. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks. Thank you.
I even think that's genius, and you should not be embarrassed by that. Keep going, though. Keep going.
Okay. Because there are two more lands, and
Yes.
conveniently, I have two more wings of my business that, so Frontierland is, I just took on, I have this thing happen a lot where because I'm a creative person, people send me referrals for clients that are artist clients or, like it makes sense to send those people toward me, but no one can afford me. And it's such a drag because like I don't have the time to take people on not at my full rate. And I hate being like, I just hate that. And so I've thought about it and I was like, I have trained so many coaches over the years who I totally love and vibe with and send people to, and they're
Mhm.
not great at enrolling people to work with them. So why don't I take them on as contractors and I can just I know.
I mean, it's like what is it when you're franchising?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the way I set it up because I selected a few coaches I love
Yeah.
and I was like
That's
very
brilliant.
transparent. I was like, here's how much you'll get. Here's the little bit I'm gonna keep for Laura Westman coaching. And it was
Yep.
just like such a win.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and they're all so excited. And now that I have it set up, I'm like thinking of all the people I can call to be like, hey, last year when we talked, blah, blah, blah. What about this? So
Right.
that's cool. And then this last one, Adventureland, is my one-to-one clients where we're like hacking
Oh,
through the brush. And yeah, so welcome to the Magic Kingdom of
I
my
mean,
business.
that is so beautiful. That's its own like workbook for people. I think it's
Yeah.
genius. I'm like, okay, that's the struggle a lot of people have though, is playing with their business,
And
And
also diversifying. Like I think this is
yeah.
just maybe I don't know how much of this is like my human design type or how much of it is just better business. But like, I know so many coaches, and I was trained this way to like basically fill up your work week with one-to-one coaching conversations. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, do you want a 9 to 5? Like, that's exactly what you just made, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
And
you're
then
right.
there's so much pressure on you to sell and on your pipeline. So I think I've wanted to do digital courses for many years and I just needed the space to really like believe in it and
Mm.
do
You
it.
I'm telling you, I could listen to you all day. I could listen to you for days and days. So
After you
good.
finish Uncover Your Creative Magic, there'll be some
Okay.
invitations
Okay.
and
Good.
it's like a really cool
I'm
course.
so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I
Thank
love what
you.
you're doing. It's like one of the reasons I started my podcast is because I spent 25 years in government. I wanted a change. I needed a change. I had to make a change so that I could live a more creative life and start doing these creative things I wanted to do with my life, but I was too scared, blah, blah, blah. And I started showing up and I started meeting other women who were doing it. And My job now is to reach back behind me to the woman who's, 5 steps behind me and say, come along, come on, let's do this together. And you're, 10, 15, 20 steps ahead of me. So I'm headed towards your direction, and it's that we're we're all on some point of the Candyland board game, right? And we're looking back and come on, it's okay. Come to Red Square with me. I made it to Red Square. I will tell you how to get here. The reason I love the Disneyland thing so much is because I have struggled so much with putting my creativity back in a box, which is where I came out of. And so what that gives me permission to do is say, my business can have multiple arms. It can have multiple fun areas, whatever, play areas. And I love how you took the play area and kind of the concept of it and tied it to how your business could fit into that zone. And that just like opened a world for me today, right now. When you
Wow.
showed that to me, it opened a world to me. Because I've been struggling with that so much. Like, how do I get my business to fit into a box? How do I get my creativity to fit into a box? It doesn't have to fit into a box. It can fit into a whole Disneyland. Or world.
Yeah.
I've gotta give it its space there. There's this space for this part of my creative endeavors. There's this space for this part of my creative endeavors. You just gave me permission to make it look like that.
I'm so happy about this. You're making me cry. So awesome.
Oh,
Thank you.
I
Wow.
I mean, it's making me tear up. It freed me a little bit. So I thank you for showing that to me and being vulnerable. And I saw a little podcast clip of yours where you said that one of the reasons we're so afraid to show up authentically is we're terrified somebody's going to think we're an idiot.
Mhm.
And I think it's one of the things I struggle with is I'm so afraid. I have a friend who calls them judgment dragons.
Mm.
I'm afraid of my own judgment dragons. I'm afraid of everybody else's judgment dragons toward me. And that is why it's so hard to just embrace like this brilliance of what I see when you show me what you came up with. But yet you're scared of it, you're scared. And we do this all the time. I have so many examples of this in my life where I'm afraid to show people this thing that I think is brilliant that I came up with because I'm afraid somebody else is going to be like, I don't get it.
Mhm.
Or, that's dumb.
Totally. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's so vulnerable to just be authentic, to just be you, like, and I love that you use this name, the Judgment Dragon. Judgment Dragons, because it is what they are. They're like dragons.
Mm.
You know, I wonder what it would be like if you were able to befriend your Judgment Dragon, nobody else's, but just yours, because then you guys could play, and I bet you could distract her sometimes with like snacks, and you could play and have a good time.
Well,
You
it's
know.
making me think of How to Train Your Dragon, where it's really just learning why that dragon is there and what it does and what it needs.
Mhm.
And it's my friend Mare. She has her own podcast called Connection Project 360. So I want to give her credit for the Judgment Dragon thing because I think it's brilliant. And I've used it so much in my own life ever since I heard her say it. But it's making me think of like, yeah, they're there and we're not going to get rid of them. We all have that human experience. Um, but can we train them? And she talks about like rewriting their job descriptions.
Fun. That's so
Yeah.
brilliant. I love that.
Isn't that great? So kind of putting
Yeah.
all that together that not only are you rewriting their job description of how they're allowed to be employed for you, but but also like what do they need? What does this particular one need as like you said, a snack or what kind of rest does this one need or what kind of alone time does this one need? Like each one of them has their needs and their wants and desires and they're also trying to protect you in a certain way
Mhm.
sometimes.
Totally. I think two other things I want to add to this brilliance. Number one, when we start opening up to more vulnerable creativity, especially in areas that it's kind of been a no-fly zone before, it is completely natural for Judgment Dragon to also arrive because Judgment Dragon has been protecting this kingdom the whole time.
Right.
So I think it's wise to not be surprised and to be a little bit like, oh, you're here. I called you in.
Uh-huh.
Great. So you could, it's like just really welcoming it as part of the awakening. And I know it's a little weird to say because most people want this fantasy of what it will be like, and it'll just be fun to be yourself and floaty and free. And like, that's not how it is. No, that's where we're going. But like, that's not it. Yeah. And the
That's
other
where we
thing,
want to be.
totally. That's why we started the journey in the first place. But the
Mhm.
other thing I was thinking too is like there's so much wisdom in just being able to discern when what's getting flared up for us is actually someone else's judgment dragon building up some heat and just being like, "Oh, that's not mine. That's definitely no, thank you.
Mhm.
No."
And why do we even think that we should be concerned about their judgment dragons, whatever's going on for them that's making them turn it towards us? I can't tame it. I don't know what it needs. I don't know how it got there. I don't know what its job description is for that person, right? So
Mhm.
why would I even try to engage with it? It's just like, you know what? There's a fence or a whatever. There's a force field where I can block your judgment dragons because they're not mine. And I can't deal with them. It's not my job to deal with them. It's your job to deal with them. You've got them. You tame them if that's whatever. But the other thing it makes me think of is like, if I'm worried about someone else's judgment dragons, A, I'm just adding dragons to my pile, which why would anybody want to do that? And B, I'm allowing that person to be my gatekeeper to everything I want. Like I'm giving you the power
Mhm.
to stop me.
Mhm. And how many people like it's so brilliant what you just distinguished. How many of us, like I include myself in this too. It's not like I'm magically just different than this, but like how
Right.
many people are just walking through their daily life, giving their power away over and over and over. Like we do it all the time
Yeah.
without even knowing.
Yeah.
So just that practice of like, nope, that's you. I'm going to bring that back. I'm not going to give my power away like that. No,
Yeah.
thank you. My
Yeah.
dragon and I have a hot date tonight. So we're going to bye.
I have loved this so much. I feel very connected with you instantly.
Me
You're
too.
just adorable. What you're doing is amazing. And I've just loved meeting you today.
Thank you. Me too. It's so amazing to kind of like just show up somewhere and be greeted with so much love and connection and play. I feel a little bit like you and I are like girls in the backyard making nature soup or something, or like this
I
feels like
love
summer
it.
camp, you know?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah,
It's like we
totally.
just met. Yeah, we just met at summer camp and we're like, we're gonna be friends,
Best
right?
friends forever. I know.
Yes.
Give me your address. I'm gonna write
Yes.
you.
That's how
Like,
I feel.
no, I'm serious. Like, give me your address.
Yes, for
Also,
real.
yeah. Also, for anybody listening, if you also want to go through my free mini program, Uncover Your Creative Magic, it's really easy to find. It's laurawestman.com/uncover. And it's free. It's really fun. I hope you have a good time. You'll have to let me know what you think when you
Yes,
go through it.
I totally will. I can't
Okay.
wait. Thank
Hey,
you
thank you
so
so much.
much.
Yeah.